All right, I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Be Berean Minded. And pretty much this is, sentiment that I was, or title actually that came to mind when I was watching Elder Apostle Tahar's video earlier. Because y'all already know what the deal is with the IUIC. They're teaching that you can have sex on the Sabbath, which that's totally bogus. That eating is a pleasure, sleeping is pleasurable. Some people even said sleeping is pleasurable, eating ice cream is pleasurable. Yeah, but all pleasures don't defile you. And that's the point, but nevertheless, as I was watching Elder Apostle Tahar's video, as he does in many of his videos, he mentioned be like the Church of Berea. And pretty much, when you go to the Church of Berea, what distinguished them from other, churches that the Apostle Paul built up and groomed and taught was the fact that they would go and actually research what the Apostle Paul, said to see if they were actually true according to the scriptures. Now you have to keep in mind now, today we have Google, you have search engines, and even when you go back to the 80s and 90s, you had something called a concordance, where you were able to look up certain words, certain phrases, certain words, and you would be able to find scriptures based off of that. And a lot of times that's how you would find the precepts that brothers are speaking about. They didn't have that back then. They didn't have concordances back then. They didn't have Google. They couldn't just speak a verse, or a phrase into Google, and all of a sudden you get, results from the KJV letting you know where you can go to find that particular precept, which that's how it's done now, And I wanted to do kind of like, not so much as a lesson, but kind of mention that for you newer brothers and some of the newer sisters, when you hear brothers speaking and they don't necessarily quote a scripture or read a scripture, not say quote a scripture, but they don't say the actual place where you can get the scripture, but they just kind of quote it. You can take the words within that scripture and type it. Either you could type it online, or you can, if you have a concordance, what we used to do it back in the days was look up for certain words in the concordance. But now it's a lot easier, because you have the Google, and you would refine your searches. The best way to do it was to find the most, the word in there that would not appear as much, in the phrase, and you'll usually find it easier that way. So they didn't have that back then. The Church of Berea didn't have that. So when the Church of Berea, when it says that they went and they searched these things out, because it said that they were noble. Now the nobles were the ones that, were raised up, you could say like royalty, because they were trained, you had tutors, and they were trained. That's why it says train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he shall not depart from it. And when they were children, they were raised up to search the scriptures, and that's why it says that they were more noble than they of Thessalonica, because they were actually going back and searching. Now, since they didn't have the Google, or they didn't have concordances back then, what they would have to do is they would have to read. So if, let's say, the Apostle Paul quoted something from the book of Isaiah or Psalms, or wherever he quoted from, he didn't necessarily say in the book of Psalms, even though sometimes it did say it, but they would say as it is written. So the people would have to go back and read through the law, through the prophets, through the history, to find that particular, that particular quote. So they were putting in major work as far as studying is concerned, and if the followers of the IUIC would implement that same technique and be Berean minded, then they would, search, and they would say, I don't know, something's up with this, something ain't right about that. These guys are saying, you can have sex on the Sabbath, but they're saying sex is pleasurable, which it is. They're saying eating is pleasurable, which it is, but eating doesn't defile you unless you're eating something abominable. But eating in general doesn't defile you, but when you do have sex, you become defiled, and that's a part of the pleasures to abstain from. I posted a scripture on the brothers' comment section. The young elder Karatas out of Vegas, in the book of Ecclesiasticus, where it speaks about the necessities for the body, being wheat, butter, oil, things of that nature. These are necessities for the body to stay healthy, for the body to stay strong, and as he brought out, Elder Apostle Gabar brought out also in his lesson, that sex is not a necessity, it's pleasurable, but it's not a necessity. If you don't have it, it's not going to affect you as far as you dropping dead, So, if these individuals that were following the IUIC, the ISUPK, and other groups out there that teach that, because there's a lot of, I'm not sure, but I think even Sakari teaches that you can have sex on the Sabbath. But if I could be wrong about that, if I'm wrong, I'm not accusing them of saying, I'm not saying that they are teaching that. I said I think. Now they could say, nope, that's not the case, and I'll stand corrected. But what's happening is a lot of camps, those are two major One West camps, the IUSC and the ISUPK, and they're both teaching that you can have sex on the Sabbath. And that's total defilement. That's totally profane. And what they're teaching Jake they're teaching Jake to profane the Sabbath. But if they had, if they were being Berean minded, they would go back and research that and find that, said, nah, this ain't right. You guys are teaching that you can have sex on the Sabbath, but that's not true, because the scriptures say, honor the Sabbath day, to honor the Sabbath day, keep it holy. So how can you keep the Sabbath holy when you're defiled? And our elder pastor brought out the scripture. Of course, when the Lord told Moses to sanctify the people, and have the men not to deal with their wives for 3 days? Because having sex would make you unclean. So when they went to go present themselves before the Lord, they had to abstain from sex for 3 days. So when you keep in the Sabbath, that is the day of the Lord. So if we keep in the Sabbath, can't have sex on the Sabbath, because that's profaning the temple of the Lord, which is our bodies. And profaning the temple of the Lord, the Lord can't deal with you. So these guys are teaching Israel pretty much to rebel against the Most High. And the Lord is going to deal with them, or deal with them for that. And here it is, we're bringing out precepts to prove that they're wrong. But then, like the brother said, they doubling down on it. They pushing it even heavier. Just like the MOTB. You have the Bishop General. He's pretty much, did a breakdown of Revelation 13, and he's going, into it, and we didn't get that far, but I'm sure he went into the 17th chapter, which he wouldn't touch the 17th chapter years back. He would just go to the 16th verse, and he wouldn't even deal with the 17th verse. But finally they got, I guess he, came up with some kind of cunningly devised concoction fable, and he was able to put together, to where now they touch on the 17th verse, with the buying and selling, which doesn't make any sense because, as it's been being brought out, how if the MOTB is sex, if the MOTB is sin, then how would someone know if you sinned or not? Which that's totally ridiculous. But it's just as ridiculous. Just as ridiculous as that is, the part about being able to have sex on the Sabbath. That's totally wrong, because a man's seed of copulation, if a man has a wet dream, he's unclean unto the evening. If a man has sex with his woman, they're unclean. That's why they got to wash themselves. They're unclean unto the evening. So why would you push that? And then when I heard that dude breaking that thing down, I said, man, this shit is super weak. I've heard arguments from so-called Christians, trying to make their point, and whatever point they're making that was stronger than that bullshit that this guy said. I was just shaking my head like, this shit is super weak. This shit is like baby shit weak, And I was just, but you have to have that. The scriptures speak about having these examples. You just like you have righteous examples of men of the Lord, you have wicked examples of men of the Lord. And they have to happen. The scripture, Yahushua said it best. He said, it is impossible but that offenses must come, but woe unto him by whom the offense cometh. But if these individuals were being Berean minded, they would be able to dig in to them books, to them scriptures, and they would know that these guys are going totally off. And then they would be like, nah, we ain't riding with that. And then if they start losing members by the tonnage, then they're gonna more than likely change their change their stance. Because their thing is about numbers, because numbers bring money, especially women. That's why a lot of these groups cater to women, because they know that women carry, they raking in the dough, So yeah, man. So be Berean minded, like the scriptures say, search the scriptures, leave no stone unturned. Look well till you're going, These other camps, they should be doing the same thing, because what's happening is that hedge that the Lord got around Israel, right? The ones that know that they're Israelites, is slowly but surely being removed from certain individuals, And if you're teaching the wrong doctrine, that means that you don't have the blood of Yahushua. And if you don't have the blood of Yahushua, when the time comes, you're not going to be protected. You're going to be asked out, And that's why it says that you have not made up the hedge for the children of Israel to stand in the day, of wrath, or something along those lines, in the book of Ezekiel 13. So you have to make sure that what you're teaching is correct, because at the end of the day, we all got to give account to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. We're going to have to give account to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And Yahushai said it again. He said, by thy words thou shalt be condemned, and by thy words thou shalt be justified. So it's the things that are taught that is going to bring the sanctification, and teaching the wrong doctrine pretty much puts you in a position where, you're open to destruction. And if you're open to destruction, then there's nothing that you could do, because you're trying to put Yahushua to an open shame. Yahushua ain't going to have that, because the Most High Yahweh is going to be exalted, and Yahushua is going to be exalted. So I just wanted to say a few words on that. Be Berean minded. Search the scriptures. Whatever is being taught, just go back and research it. Check it out. And dealing with these other camps, there's times when you hear certain things that don't sound right. Said, don't matter how. Scriptures say that not to be a respecter of persons. Just because a man is a great man, or in a position of greatness doesn't mean that he's always correct. You have to check and double check. And then once you're sure, say, okay, yep, this is right, that's right, And that's how you become Berean minded. All right, so with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. I just want to say a few words on it. I really don't have any more. That's the main point. You can read Acts the 17th chapter, which brings out, the church of Berea and the statement that the Apostle Paul brought out about them, because they did go back and research. And remember, they didn't have Google back then. They didn't have the concordance back then. They couldn't just search a word, or type in a phrase into Google, and all of a sudden the scripture would pop up, and they would be able to go to the exact chapter and verse, to be able to bring out, or to study and verify what the Apostle Paul has said, because first and foremost, they had to read through the Bible. The Bible was not broken down into chapters. The only thing that was really broken down was the Psalms, and it wasn't verse by verse. It was written because it was songs. The second song, because it even says that in the book of Acts, in the second song, and the Bible wasn't codified till 1557 by a man by the name of William Whittingham. He's the one that codified the Bible in 1557, and then 3 years later, which was 1560, that was when the first codified Bible was printed, which was a Geneva Bible. That was the first codified Bible, but the Bible wasn't codified until 1557. So they didn't have that back then. They had to put in that work. Just like back in the days, we didn't have Google. We had to go to the library, crack the books open, go into, and doing it, pretty much doing it the hard way, but it was good because that's what Yahushua spoke about, searching for those hidden treasures, going into it, it was exciting, going into it, breaking down stuff, learning, and then once you learn, can't wait to share it with brothers, can't wait to share this nugget with brothers, and then you may form it or pose it in the form of a question. How do you prove so-and-so is such as, and then, that would get their minds going, So it's a beautiful thing, So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.